Hey, what's up, everybody? And this is my Spider-Man Homecoming spoiler review. So, yep, spoilers. If you don't want to get spoiled, go watch my non-spoiler review, where I don't get into the story really at all. So, I already talked about like how I like Tom Holland's performance. I like Robert Downey Jr. Everybody in this movie was good. Um, so, one quick spoiler off the bat. It's kind of like right at the end. It has nothing to do really with the movie. So I'm Generation X, so I'm not down with the millennials necessarily. I'm starting to feel like an old man. I have no idea who Zendaya is. I had to look her up. I guess she was on the Disney Channel. So she apparently is MJ. At the end, she's like, "Oh, my friends call me NJ," which I don't know. Whatever. That, okay. Anyways, like I said in my non-spoiler review, if you haven't seen it, I love this movie. I gave it an 82. Um, it's a great movie. I love Spider-Man. I am gonna say I am a bit biased. Everybody knows I am a Marvel fanboy. This movie was made for me. Okay, I'm not gonna give it 100. It's not 100. And I also said it's not the best Spider-Man film. I think Spider-Man 2, where he fights Doctor Octopus, the Sam Raimi one, is the best one. And this one is either second or it's a close third right after Spider-Man 1, the first one with again with Sam Raimi. So spoilers. Well, I'll just get into the story because I already kind of went over how the direction and the whole Marvel thing. This movie is really tied into the MCU. So it starts off 8 years ago, right after the incident that they call it, right, where the Chitauri attack. In New York. And so this guy Michael Keaton plays, he's got like a cleanup crew. He went and he like put a mortgage out on his house, and he's cleaning up all the mess. It pans down, you see Avengers Tower is all like messed up, and it even shows like that dead that creature that it's kind of like a flying worm looking thing, flying centipede, that Thorn Hulk. Like that thing's like getting cleaned up. All this mess, all these Chitari tech is getting cleaned up. And this lady shows up saying, "No, we'll take care of it." And it turns out Tony Stark makes, I think, damage control, which is, I believe there is a damage control somewhere in the comic book world. I'm not too familiar with it. I am a comic book reader. I'm not a super comic book reader. I tend to only read like the major events that happen. I don't read like I'm not there every. I usually wait for the collections if it's something big or something that I like, or a writer like Jonathan Hickman or something that I'm a fan of. Um, anyway, it starts off with that, and this lady's like, "No, we'll take care of it." And he's like, "Well, I took a mortgage. I'm gonna lose my house. I hired more people. I bought new trucks for this." She's like, "No, we got this. So you're gonna pay the price." So he starts stealing some of the tech, and some of his people are he's got some pretty bright people that work for him, and they start fiddling with the tech and making gadgets, and eventually it fast forwards to 8 years later, and they're making weapons and they're selling it illegally, right? So 8 years go by, and then this movie takes place. It's really cool. It cuts to Peter Parker making like taking videos with his cell phone, and you find out that he actually was videotaping the whole thing in that happened in Germany in Civil War. So this takes place after Civil War, and Tony Stark let him keep the suit, which is something that I hypothesized was the deal. I stayed away from trailers because I didn't want it spoiled. But I was like, I think this movie takes place like kind of simultaneously through that. You see him kind of on his way to Germany. He's like playing with the cell phone. I don't know why I need to go to Germany. And Happy's with him. He's like, "Don't film this. Don't. What are you doing?" And yeah, he films himself. Like you get to see the stuff in Civil War from another angle. And like the line where in Civil War, Tony Stark's like, "Oh, on the roof." He's like, "Oh, that's my cue. I gotta go, guys." And he puts the cell phone down. Then he's like filming, and Ant-Man gets big. He's like, "Oh man, that guy just got big. I gotta go take care of this." It's it was so cool. I loved it. It was so intertwined with the MCU. They were there to tell you this is in the MCU. Um, so shortly thereafter, Tony Stark is kind of like tells him, "Don't call us, we'll call you," type of deal, and And Spider-Man, he just can't. He just wants to be in the Avengers so bad. He's ready to drop out of high school. He's ready to stop everything to go be an Avenger. Like he wants to do that badly. And so he keeps putting on the suit and going out at night. And he's texting Happy, like he's got Happy's phone number, Happy Hogan. He say, "Hey, what's up? Waiting for your call. I'm here." Just all the time, constantly, 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 constantly. And he foils some robberies. At one point, he steals a guy from breaking into a car, but it was his own car. I guess he left the keys inside, or he was locked out, and he's kind of screwing it up. And then he starts to catch wind that about these weapons getting sold, and finally he's able to track a shipment uh, um, of these weapons onto a boat. And he did tell Tony about it. And what ends up happening is he goes to the boat and tries to foil it himself. But Tony never got. See, Tony never got back to Spider Man about the weapon shipment on the boat. So Tony called the FBI and didn't tell Peter. So then Peter just tried to go and stop the thing himself, and the he ended up fighting with the Vulture on this ferry, right, going probably from New York to New Jersey or something. Splits the boat gets split in half, and all the people are about to die. And Iron Man comes in and saves the day. And Iron Man had already warned him once. He's like, "Hey, you're kind of like getting in over your head. Just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." Right? He'd already warned him once when he what was it that happened? Yeah, I think he something happened where he goes on the academic team to Washington D.C. And it turns out that when he had stopped some of these weapon smugglers, he stole a little piece of tech. It was Chitari tech, and that tech, when it is exposed to radiation, explodes. And this is all important, and this is why I think the movie is well written, because almost everything that is said and done comes back around full circle. So he disappears. He ends up not going to the academic thing because he's off being a hero and getting his butt kicked. And the next day they win, which I thought that was a little weird. I almost feel like the movie would have been better. This movie's aimed at millennials, right? And millennials always win, right? They always get a trophy. So I think that was kind of the millennial choice. It would have been better if his academic team lost in Washington D.C., right? And the only reason he was even there, because he was gonna quit. He was gonna quit the team, is because he knew that the tracker he had placed on the Shocker, it was in Maryland, and he's like, "Oh wait, the academic team's in Maryland." So he joins a team back at the last minute just so he can get a ride to Maryland. And yeah, they let him back in, but he ended up not participating, and they still won. But okay, whatever. Um, so when they're in Washington D.C., they go through the X-ray machine. So the X-ray machine is radiation, and he's calling his buddy, right? His chubby buddy. I forgot his name, but he's the only guy that knows that he's Spider-Man, and 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 he just cannot. It's like that trope where he's like, "Oh, hello, hello." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, whatever. What, you're breaking up?" And then he's like, "Oh, here's the phone to Liz or wherever, the girl he likes, who's she was really cool. She was a cute girl. I don't know who she is. Uh, but yeah, so he has to put his backpack through the X-ray machine because they're going up into the Washington Monument, and well, as soon as he puts it through the X-ray machine, it activates the Chitari stone, and it starts to become unstable. And once they go up into the elevator to the top, which I didn't even know there was an elevator in that thing, it kind of shoots a beam out of the top and destroys the elevator, and they're all about to die. So Spider-Man goes in and saves the day. And that's when Tony's like, So then later, again, he tries to do the thing in the boat, and that's when, after Iron Man has to save the day, he asks him to give him the suit back. And man, it was you could tell Peter's heart was just like breaking because he wanted so bad to be in the Avengers, and for that to happen, that I felt really bad. I felt his pain when you want to do something like that and then you can't. So he kind of copes with that for a while and decides maybe he's just going to be a teenager and do teenage things, right? He starts building the Lego Death Star, which I have that Lego set. I haven't built it yet because I don't have room in my studio apartment. Um, Hanging out with his buddy until eventually he he gets the guts to ask that girl Liz that he likes to homecoming, and she agrees, and she says yes. So when he was on that boat where everything went bad, he got a good look at the face of the vulture. And here's a big spoiler that I did not see coming. Right, huge twist. He goes to her house to pick her up to go to homecoming, and the guy who answers the door is Michael Keaton, and it turns out the vulture is that girl's dad. It's his date's dad. Is this girl that he's been crushing on like forever? He even overheard them talking about like how these girls were like in gym class talking like, oh, who, like that marry, kill, sleep with, or kiss, what kiss, kill, marry. They were like Thor, Captain America or Hulk, and she was like Spider-Man. So he's been hiding this secret, and and he finally got to go out with her, and it turns out that the villain is her dad. I did not see. I did not. I don't know if the trailers gave anything away, but I did not see that coming. That was such a great moment because it raised the stakes. I'm like, well, now he can't kill him. That's her dad, or maybe he will. I mean, what's gonna happen now? And then he kind of like, you don't know if Michael Keaton knows because Spider-Man saw his face, so Peter saw his face, but Michael Keaton never got past the mask of Spider-Man when he was screwing all that stuff up. He ended up getting away after the boat split in two, and he and the Shocker got away. Um, so you're kind of wondering, they're driving to prom, and then she starts talking about like how he disappeared in Washington D.C. and then how he watched it from the ground, and then you can kind of see the gears start to work in Michael Keaton's mind. He's like, wait a minute, all these coincidences, like, okay, you weren't there, you disappeared when the stuff happened the night before, and then he was in DC, and then during her party was when he disappeared at the party because he knew his daughter was having a party, and that's the same night that a bunch of his guys got foiled, right? That's where he put the tracker on the guy where he foiled a gun sale, an illegal gun sale of Michael Keaton, his all this tech. He's been stealing tech, right? Which is fitting for the Vulture. He's a scavenger, so he's been stealing all this like Avengers tech, Chitauri tech. He's got even guns made of like those Ultron guys, their hands from like Wachovia or Sokovia. All this tech, and he's like, huh. So he disappeared from the party. Spider-Man shows up. He disappears in DC. Spider-Man shows up. So he's like, okay, get out of the car at homecoming. He's like, let me talk to your date here. And then he figures it out, and he tells him, listen, you better, back off. And at this point, Peter doesn't have the Spider-Man suit anymore. Then he goes to prom, and as soon as he walks in, he leaves the girl Liz. Again, he's like, I gotta go. So he goes over to his warehouse, and he literally drops the roof on him. He goes to talk to the Vulture, and he thinks he's got him, but the Vulture stalls him, and he summons his wings, and it breaks all these pillars, and the roof falls on Spider-Man, and he's trapped. He gets away, and then he's got this huge heist plan because Avengers Tower is moving out of New York City, and rightfully so, right? Because it's kind of like a target in a high populated area, and moving to the one upstate that they've been using, that you've seen in the other movies. Um, and so all this Avengers tech, arc reactors, equipment for Thor, advanced shields, Cap shields, which is a little weird because Cap is technically a fugitive, and Cap is in this movie a lot in videos. Like when he goes to detention, they play a video. You got to watch this video, and it's Cap saying, "So you're in detention," da, da, da. Or gym class, he's like, "Oh, fitness is very important." And it's really funny, and he's wearing his old suit from the first Avengers, so I like that they did that. And he also, if you're gonna stay at the end credits, I'll tell you now what it is. Is it's Captain America at the end credits, just making a joke, and he's kind of saying, he's like, so patience, it's an important virtue. You may ask yourself, why did I wait so long for so little? And it's just them messing with us. And there's another mid-credit scene where it's the Scorpion in jail, and he asks him about Spider-Man, which I thought was cool. I wouldn't have known it was a scorpion until I saw the tattoo on his neck. I was like, okay, that's Scorpion. That's cool. Anyway, um, uh, by the Vulture goes off, and he's gonna hijack the plane that they're loading up with all this Avengers tech, and he's gonna break in. He's got these two really, or these four, kind of really cool. I think this alien tech that allow him. If he puts four of them, it opens up a door, and he could pass through walls or whatever it is, through a safe if he wanted to, and that's how he's been able to steal all this stuff. As the he's stealing from the same organization that put him out of a job, from the same cleanup crew as they clean all this enemy tech. He steals it. He doesn't steal all of it. He just steals like one or two boxes, enough to keep him in business, and enough to maybe they won't notice, or they'll just be like, "Well, we lost a box," you know. And this is how he's been making a living and feeding his family. And in the discussion he has with Peter, Peter goes and before he drops the roof on him, he's like, "How could you do this to Liz?" And he's like, "I do this for her. I do this for my family. I do this to put food on the table. You're not grown up yet. You don't understand what that pressure's like." And I empathize with Michael Keaton's character because he was your everyman. He even goes on this spiel about like we're the ones who fight the wars. We're the ones who clean up the streets, who build the buildings, and all for these rich guys like Tony Stark. And I got where he was coming from. I got it. Um, he's like they brought all this mess down, and then they put me out of a job too, and yeah, I definitely got it, and I liked his motivations. He was a good villain. It's one of the top. I put him right up there, right up with Loki. I thought he was good. And spoilers again, spoiler review. He doesn't die at the end, which was good. He goes to jail. He talks to Scorpion. He's gonna face. He's gonna go to trial. Um, you don't see the trial, but he's in there waiting for his trial. His family moves to Oregon along with the girl Liz. And there's a scene after he leaves Peter tied in the rubble, and he's off hijacking this huge plane, which takes off from Avenger Tower, right, to the one up north. Um, there's a scene where so he's stealing all that. And there's a scene with Peter, and at this point he's got his kind of pajama suit, the old one, back on. He just has to motivate himself. I really felt for him when he was under there. He was just struggling. He couldn't push. He couldn't push. He couldn't free himself from the rubble. And finally, I guess he just dug deep inside of him, and he's able to free himself. And I got it. Um, that was a nice little moment. I liked it. Something felt slightly flat, and again, I couldn't remember this jerk with the phone kept like distracting me every time, but I that was a good moment. So he goes off, and he manages to catch up. He steals a car from Flash at the dance, and he changes like his voice, and he freaks him out. He's like, "Give me our car." He's like, "This is my dead car," and he's like crashing, and he completely destroys that car. Um, trying to catch up to the Vulture. He goes to Avengers Tower and manages to sling his web onto like the Vulture's foot, which I guess maybe he doesn't notice because he's like, "Oh, this new wings, they feel kind of like extra drag." You would think he would feel. I mean, I guess he doesn't think to look back. He doesn't have a rear view, but Peter's back there. He attached himself to the wings. Uh, so there's this really epic fight on the. It was a really unique fight. I like how they did everything on the plane, how they're fighting each other, and yeah, it's a very kind of a close quarters, kind of a combat, and they did make the Vulture look like kind of he fought like a vulture, like it was. Maybe I like his fighting style. Every time they fight, he was very textbook the way he kind of gets his butt beat by the Vulture at first, and then he comes back later right after he finds it's a classic, it's a very classic trope, but the journey was very 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 fun. Um, and then the plane starts to go out of control, right? Because they're fighting on this plane. Um, the Vulture thinks he's got it made. Just one of those crates, they'll set him for life, set him up for life, him and his people. Um, And so he's like, man, I hit the jackpot. He starts going through everything. He sees cap shields, Thor stuff, Iron Man gear, all sorts of stuff. And he's like, yeah, this is. He's like, I hit the jackpot. And after he and Peter start fighting, um, the plane ends up crashing, and Peter ends up having to use the his webs to kind of move the control surfaces on the plane to kind of steer it away from a populated area. Which I thought, oh my god! For a second, I thought it was gonna land. It looked like Coney Island, maybe, or who knows. But it lands on the beach on the sand somewhere in New York, maybe Coney Island beach. Next to some carnival rides, and nobody dies, but all the gear is scattered everywhere. And then they they then Vulture really starts kicking his butt, man, because he's got the crappy pajama stuff now. He doesn't have any of the enhanced super stuff. That other suit had all sorts of electro webs, had like the ball shooter attacks. It had a bunch of stuff, and Tony Stark had put this program called Training Wheels on it, and his big friend, his kind of chubby friend, had found a way to override that, and it was just way out of it was too much for Peter to handle. But now with his pajamas, basically his pajamas that he's got fighting the Vulture, Vulture just starts kicking his ass. And I like the way they did the scene. And one big complaint I have is at the end, Vulture he's got Spider-Man pretty much beat. He's just beat the crap out of him. And out of all the crates he would grab, he grabs the arc reactors. He's gonna make off. He's like, I'm getting at least one crate. Now the arc reactors, apparently they give away radiation. So his suit is powered by those Chitauri things, which he stole from the cleanup, right? He had a truckload from the beginning, plus he's been stealing it all throughout the 8 years. And so those arc reactors are going to make his Chitauri tech that powers his wings. It's going to make it explode, and it's going to kill him. And he's like, I'm trying to save you. And he kind of pulls. You see, it was a little bit unclear. They should have made him. I, I felt it was very anticlimactic. He pulled the arc reactors down, and it explodes, but he doesn't die. In fact, at the end of the movie, Michael Keaton goes to jail, and there's not a scratch on him. So I don't know what happened with the arc reactors falling, and then he pulls them back down. It's just kind of maybe like he loses power. I felt it was very anticlimactic. It was like, oh wait, that's it. Like Peter, I understood he was trying to save him by pulling the arc reactors with his web. He's like, I'm trying to save you, Vulture at that point just wants to get away with the arc reactors. I mean, he could have stole the Captain America shields or they had some Thor belt thing tech. Why do you have? I guess the arc reactors is probably what I would have taken too. And he had no way of knowing, I guess, that would set off his power things, his Chitauri tech in his wings. But it was kind of, I was like, oh, that's the end of the battle. I was like, and I thought there'd be like a big explosion and he'd be all burned and disfigured. But he just looked. I was like, oh, there's not a scratch on him. That is one complaint I have, right? It lost like 3 or 4 points because of that, maybe even 5. But I felt like that was the scene on the plane when they're fighting was really epic. They're tearing that, man. They had the engines flying out, which hopefully didn't kill anybody down on the ground. Who knows? Um, but yeah. So like I said, I gave this movie an 82. Somewhere between a 79 and an 82. See, it's a little unclear because I had other people in the theater distracting me. So I wanted to say 79 initially. I gave it a little boost. Probably really the score is more like an 81, maybe an 80. I think I gave 80 to Wonder Woman, maybe 83. I don't remember, but I think I like this one. I like it about the same. Yeah, it's close. I can't remember what I gave Wonder Woman. Again, I don't want to get into Marvel DC, but Spider-Man is my favorite hero, or was my favorite hero growing up. As I got older, it became Cap. So yeah, I about an 81, 82 ish score, or maybe an 81. We'll say an 81, right? Um, yeah, and then I already went over the post credits scene, and he goes to jail, and then at the very end, um, Happy shows up in the bathroom of his high school, which is funny because there's some dude pooping in there when they start talking. And he goes through the whole. I don't want to give away the joke, but anyway, he tells him he's like, "Hey, Tony wants to see you up at the other Avengers, the new Avengers headquarters up north." So he goes up there, and Tony's like, "Yep, I see you've grown, and you listen to my advice, and you're very mature now." And he's like, "On the other side of this wall, I've got 50 reporters, and ready for you to announce that you're the newest member of the Avengers. And he pushes his button, and this wall like opens up, and it's the Iron Spider suit. I was like, oh my god, Iron Spider, yes. And Spider-Man just kind of thinks about it. Peter thinks about it, and he's like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna be my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And Tony's like, okay, I respect that. He's like, he starts walking away. Oh, Pepper Potts comes out too. But that's after he starts walking away. He's like, well, this is a test anyways, right? There's not really 50 reporters. He's like, no, yeah, you're right. You passed the test, kid. And Tony sees a lot of himself, I think, in Peter. Um, yeah, he could just tell that, and maybe he's trying to be a father figure to him, since his dad was always kind of focused on his work and whatnot. Maybe trying to focus on what he would have wanted, what kind of a male role model he would have liked to have in his life, and he's trying to be that for Peter. Uh, so Peter leaves. He turns it down. He was about to be a full-fledged member of the Avengers. He told Happy, go show him to his room. He's right next to Vision. Your door is right next to his door, and they're like, yeah, well, Vision doesn't like doors anyway. And I was like, oh man, I was actually hoping we'd get to see another Avenger, but nothing. You do see Captain, but only in videos. He doesn't walk on because he's a at one point, one of the guys who's doing the detention plays the video. He's like, yeah, by the way, I think Captain's a war criminal now. So it's after Civil War. Um, After Peter leaves, Pepper Potts comes out, and he's like, what do I tell all these reporters? And they really were reporters back there. He's like, where'd he go? He's like, yeah, Happy told him to leave. He's like, I didn't tell him to leave. And it was so cool to see Gwyneth Paltrow back as Pepper Potts. And they're like, oh, okay, because he just told the reporters he had a news conference, and that was supposed to be the announcement. Now they got nothing, so they're gonna go make up a story or something. And then Happy has like a wedding ring that he's been holding on to. She's like, oh, I'm not doing that. So, and then the movie ends. It was really fun. Yeah, 81, 82. I highly recommend. Go see this movie as soon as you can. I really wish the best to this movie. And I do think the director, he kind of was he had very specific directions. I think he was told to follow. I don't think he had much freedom. I think he was just there to do a job, do as he was told, and kind of they needed a director, so they handpicked him, man. And it's good for him. I would love to have this movie on my resume. So let me know what you guys think. Like and subscribe. Did you guys like the movie? Did you hate it? Yeah, let me know. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys later. Bye.